Good morning, LinkedIn. Welcome to Let's Build Daily. I'm your host, Chris Carolan, and excited for next week and wanted to share my story as it relates to um, HubSpot Academy and World Certification Week. And uh, I know I've heard lots of stories out there about, how every HubSpot journey is different, but so many of them have started with uh, the free content, the free education that is HubSpot Academy. Um, and it's not an understatement to say that was the beginning of just a completely different career path for me. Um, And so that's what we're diving into today. If you've never heard of World Certification Week, I've got the homepage up here. Um, for every certification awarded between April 15th and April 19th next week, Monday to Friday, HubSpot will donate $5 to an education-focused charity up to $25,000. This is your chance to join thousands of learners around the globe as they grow their careers and make an impact in their communities. And I'll be honest, um, I'm not sure I've ever intentionally participated in this in the past. Uh, I tend to, get a bug in my bonnet in order to create or go into the academy and just when the time is right and I feel like doing it, that's when I get in there and I knock out a course. Um, so excited to be a little more intentional this year and, um, just see what we can do to get more people trained up. And the reason I wanted to share my story is because it's not just training on the tool, right? There are so many things, and that's how I got into HubSpot, right? There's so many things you can learn from the academy. They're not all certifications. When you hear certification, uh, it's not as heavy as some of the other certs you might hear about, where it's in person and proctored and it takes 100 hours, right? Um, so my story uh, begins in January of 2017, where we had just had our first down year um, at ASI. And I had been in Salesforce for a couple years, didn't know anything about HubSpot. And at the end of 2016, as director of marketing and sales, I was starting to get some buy-in about marketing automation. Right, all we had then was QuickBooks Online um, and Salesforce. And of course, I was trying to do all the things in Salesforce. I mean, we're a 10-person team. I worked with somebody to get orders in there and quotes in there, and wasn't the best experience. But I thought we could do some stuff with marketing, but since I was in the Salesforce, uh, ecosystem, I wasn't seeing HubSpot. I was seeing Marketo and Pardot. Uh, so the educational content I was getting up to that point, which was helpful, was from Marketo, and that kind of led me down the path of um, even thinking that marketing automation would be helpful in the first place and learning about it. So I was between Marketo and Pardot, and once I found out that Marketo was like HubSpot was built to it was built on top of the Salesforce infrastructure. It was designed on top of that infrastructure. So where Pardot was just purchased and kind of added in, so it made sense to go with Marketo. During that onboarding, um, I found HubSpot Academy, and I can't remember exactly, which course I took first. But I can say that the thing that I recommend, to everybody who's open to it, and this is where we'll get into this in a little bit, like the nuance of how much time do people have to devote to it, where they are in their learning journey as it relates to their job and what they're open to doing. Um, but the first one I try to recommend is inbound. Um, and this is where uh, if you can start people here, it's so helpful just because there's a philosophy here, right, behind all of this, and that is inbound. And this idea of helping first and get paid later, right? It's real. It's how you help people grow better because you're actually focused on their growth and their success, knowing that it will come back your way. Maybe not always in the way of revenue from them, right? But it might be revenue from somebody else, maybe revenue from something else. Maybe when they change jobs, now the revenue comes, right? And I love this example of the academy in general, just because this is free. And every company has things that they could be training their user base, their audience, their target market on. And when you have your people on video sharing knowledge, it is hands down the best way to market your people, your service, your products, because you aren't selling, right? And you remove that barrier. So it helps people be more open. And when we think about the value, right, there's a lot of like thoughts about, um, well, if it's free advice, then there's no value, right? There's a lot of people that think that way. When I was onboarding with Marketo, it wasn't going well. And we won't get into the details of why, but halfway through that first month of January 2017, I found the HubSpot Academy and I started taking courses. And the onboarding experience didn't get any better. And so naturally, day 27, I make it to a HubSpot pricing page. And within 7 minutes, this is where it's less creepy when you know how all this stuff works, and you can appreciate the process behind it. Within 7 minutes, I got a call from a salesperson at HubSpot. So theoretically, he can see my activity, right? They got my email address from signing up for the academy, and so he asked if he can help me with anything. Obviously, if I get to the pricing page at that point, it's because I'm now curious because of what I've learned in the academy, because of the way that the onboarding is going with Marketo. Like, how much would it be? Right? If I'm asking how much, that means I'm interested in the product, right? In some way. So since it was day 27, I was able to get out of the contract based on what was going on with Marketo, and for the same cost, started with marketing hub. And back then it was that year, sales hub and service hub were starting up too. So it was good timing for a guy like me who likes to think about, all of the things. And looking back, what I know about Marketo now, there was no way I was ready or we needed anything at the level that was doing it. Plus, like, it would mean complete reliance on the CRM side of Salesforce. So, so I became a customer based on this initial experience. And now, having implemented HubSpot at 4 different businesses internally, helping other businesses do it now, I've created, like, if this goes well, right? If this continues, which I think it will, millions of dollars of revenue for HubSpot because of this free content, right? So that's just the beginning of the journey. You're probably here to understand the academy and the nuance of the education. But I think it's important to understand the why. Like there is a return on this stuff, if you understand the impact it can have, and if you talk about the right topics. Like it's pretty easy to, if we look at, let me just see if I can get into the Let's Build portal here. So in order to get to it, it's in this drop down, HubSpot Academy. And so since I'm in a different portal, right, we go to my learning, my team, and this is the view I was looking for. And so all of these certs are available. And so first of all, if there's anybody out there that is, thinking about a career change, not sure, even like I'd go as far to say like not sure where they fit in when it comes to career, I will like 100% like stand behind the recommendation of come into HubSpot Academy. And if you find something you like and you learn this content, this approach to helping customers, to helping other people, you will find a job. Like you will. And it's free. Again, right? You don't need to go get a college degree. Some college courses I've heard about, right? They have this content marketing course in HubSpot in the college course as a part of the curriculum, right? So I won't go into, that, but just understand that like all of these things, a lot of them are missing from the traditional, learning path that people might take, right? And so this is an example of, a specific topic that is not specific to HubSpot, right? So content marketing, but HubSpot needs people to be good at content marketing in order to get value from Marketing Hub, as an example, right? So that's why they teach a course on content marketing, right? So this is, we'll call this like theory based, right? And throughout this course, they will use HubSpot tools to get some of this done. And that was so enlightening for me. Like once I heard once I felt like how it was happening, right? They're not selling HubSpot tools, but you naturally get sold on HubSpot tools because you're getting it with the knowledge set that you need to be successful with the tools, right? Now, the difference here, and, one of the challenges that I started to feel, but I care about it less because, I just like to learn all the things, like maybe a little too much. I like to understand the nuance of who's delivering the message and when. And if we look at, so that's a content marketing course. But then if we look at HubSpot marketing software, you will see a lot of the, man, I crushed this one, 69 out of 60. That's how I do, folks. Marketing software is almost a practical version, in tool. This is how the software works version of the content marketing course. So you will see a lot of the same things, right? Maybe less strategic, more tactical, but you will hear a lot of the same topics. So something to think about as you're recommending courses to people is understand whether it's theory based or practical. And obviously, if it's somebody who, somebody who's not in the marketing department or not using HubSpot Marketing Hub, it's helpful if they understand and can learn content marketing, but they do not need to know how to use all of the tools in Marketing Hub. I'll always say it's helpful if they understand how it works because this data flows all over the system, and that's where you get the most out of HubSpot. But that's like one of the nuances of theory versus practical. So whenever you see this software um, in the certification designation, that is a practical course on using HubSpot, and it does get practical in that there is a practical exercise. So manually create a contact. And this is the kind of stuff that's easy to overlook. It's easy to say, okay, just go and do that thing. Like, then you'll figure it out, or follow this guide. Right. And even over the years since I was introduced in 2017, this has gotten like 1,000 times better. Right. Where there's just practicals all over the place. And for a lot of these certifications, you have to, when practicals exist, you have to complete them, and they are often reviewed. But at the same time, if you've been working in the tool and those things have already been done, you don't necessarily have to redo them. You just kind of connect the dots with the certification. And so that's like one nuance that I highlight. But coming back to what's it over here, the inbound certification, this philosophy, like starting people here is always what I try to do, because we have the fundamentals of inbound, like this helpful approach that we talked about, growing your business, how it impacts all of the business. Like, this is not just a marketing philosophy. This is a way of doing business, which is where most of the nuance comes in, right? Like, this is serious change for organizations that have been sales led and just are focused on leads and sales outreach, and like, because this is answering questions on the website, this is being active in the community and social media. It's a different approach, and it's easy, especially as a marketer, as a person interested in growth and optimistic about how these ideas could apply to your business. It's very easy to go like, hey guys, this is just a no-brainer. Like, let's all take this course. But understanding that, like, without great internal communication mechanisms in your business, without good training programs, right? It's not, it's one thing to recommend it, but holding people accountable for doing it and seeing the results from it is a different story. And again, like, so this is a 2-hour, it's about 2 hours. And, right, you'll see a lot of the same things, like, so buyer personas, buyer's journey. These things were in the content marketing course. They were in the marketing software cert. But like anything training wise, there's usually not harm in seeing it, multiple times in different aspects. Now, what's missing, and the biggest part of the nuance that I've learned, is if somebody's new to this space and they're used to doing sales and industrial, for example, half of the terminology used in these certifications are unknown to them. And when we talk about the importance of common language, it's critical here, because as soon as I get in here and I start seeing, let's go into the sales software, for example. like even concepts about like friction and like good fit versus bad fit, right? Chat flows. If you're not there, or if you haven't done this in a nuanced way that matters for their job, for their daily activity, the most random words will turn them off, right? And so while I'm never a fan of, you know, micromanagement related concepts, it is very important to understand the what's in it for me, for anybody inside of your organization that you're recommending this to. Because what happens if you don't is they find ways to get turned off if they see it as an extra thing that they don't have time for. They're already strapped for time. They're already missing emails. They're already slammed with customer calls, right? They need a really good reason to fit this in, especially if they're doing a great job. I don't want to say feeling like they're doing a good job. If they are doing a great job, right? But the organization as a whole needs to shift into scalability, and that's why they've invested in HubSpot, right? That's why we want people starting to do this. But if this salesperson is already making a lot of money and hitting all their goals, like why do they need to spend time on this, right? This is where you can come in and, you know, find things, like look for the faster time to value, where if we come to, you know, and we think about like, um, you know, meetings, all right, simplifying your appointments with meetings, right? And if we look at that, this is a 10-minute video, you know, about um, the meetings tool in HubSpot. One of the first places I start with a salesperson, because there's almost always time to be saved here, right? So certs are there, and it can help if people are open to taking them, if the organization is behind that idea. But understand that's not always, you know, the best place to start. Another example that I ran into, which is again like understanding that this is, you know, this is a learning path for both sides, right? And I was working with a service manager that who I knew was tech savvy and knew that very manual things were happening in her with her team, right? Understood the value of tickets, right, and building a ticketing system. Uh, so with that person and their knowledge level, I'm like, okay, I don't need to walk this person through. I don't need to understand, you know, her previous experience when it comes to tools like this. I can just send her the Service Hub software certification, and um, it'll be all right. She'll just get it, right? And it's almost always like, I'll just say it, like, you have to stop yourself. Anybody should stop themselves if you're about to send something related to HubSpot and you think they're just going to get it, right? Take a second there and understand maybe why they wouldn't get it, right? Maybe this is where experience is super helpful. And a lot of the value in us as partners is helping you think through these possible obstacles and roadblocks. But what happened is she got to this piece, and I think this is newer, related to the new help desk. But either way, like live chat was one of the first things she saw. And it turned out that that had previously been tried on this team like a year prior, and it did not go well. Right. So when she sees that, right, all this baggage from this previous experience, you know, shows up, And it's like, no, that's not what we're about. You know, we didn't get to the tickets and templates and customer feedback, like didn't even get that far, right? It's like I see chat. I remember my experience with chat, right? It doesn't matter that we use a different tool that wasn't designed for user experience like HubSpot is. Live chat means something to me and I don't like it. We don't have time to do it, right? And it has this way of when that's the first experience that somebody has, just like my first impression was great, that first impression is bad and it colors the perception of HubSpot as a whole. So that's just an example. Um, a couple examples of how it can be very easy to think, hey, here's this super valuable thing. It was valuable for me. So, of course, it's going to be valuable for you. Check it out without understanding the what's in it for me and kind of their journey at the same time. You can get yourself, you know, you don't get the results that you're expecting, right? Um, with that, as we wrap up, I want to make a couple recommendations outside of the inbound cert, right? The inbound cert, if somebody is open and willing and you can get them aligned with the real strategy and concept and philosophy. It is a philosophy. It's a different approach to doing business. Start there, and it's 2 hours. The videos are short, right? And um, I mean, it should benefit anybody, like literally anybody that watches this. I think there will be takeaways. The importance of aligning with business goals, having purpose, right? Purpose and goals. How many companies are just out there just doing stuff every day? Well, if you want to keep doing stuff and not thinking about these things, do not invest in tools like HubSpot. I'll just say it, right? Like there's so much to be gained from a tool like HubSpot, but if you can't sit down for a moment and think about why you're doing things, right? And this doesn't mean like company purpose, like we want to change the world, we want to, fix hunger. This is just understanding like who you are to your customers, right? And how do you do more of that, right? How do you do it better? How do you help them, right? That's what these things should be doing for you. Creating that common language around the business is just so crucial to align your teams and getting value out of a tool like HubSpot. So otherwise, some hidden gems that, let's see, that surprised me. Like one of my favorites uh, was uh, like HubSpot CMS for marketers is definitely something that I think is underrated. Um, and again, just because like this is how does the system work, especially in relationship to your website? Like once you understand that, especially in sales, if you're like, okay, somebody's on this product page, and if they fill out this form, we can add this piece of information into the system and I'll get a better notification. I'll have more understanding of what they did when I get on the sales call. It will not be starting from scratch, right? Understanding how this stuff connects together, it just goes a long way. And that's where, again, HubSpot is different from most CRMs in that it's right next to the CMS or even the CMS tools, right? Now, it doesn't have to be a website in HubSpot. We've been able to embed forms on a WordPress site and other sites for a long time. Now we can embed content and make smart content over there. So this doesn't mean your website is on HubSpot. It means you're managing the experience wherever your website is in a way that gets information from their behavior that can inform the next steps. So if they're filling out a demo form or they're filling out a I want to talk to sales and buy right now form, it goes right to sales. And sales is ready for that conversation. They're not going to be like discovery, right? They're still going to want to do some discovery, but this is where if you're aligned in the strategy and you know that in order to get to that I want to buy right now page, they had to qualify themselves along the way, it becomes a very different conversation, right? So understanding how the system works, and within all of those, they could be like, share specific videos. They're like 5 to 10 minute. Sometimes they get up to 20 if they've got a great interview on there. Um, and speaking of interviews, how about I just use this search bar to make things easier? Right, enable. That's actually for people. So there is a sales enablement course, which I have not taken on this account in a while, but it was the first time they included a lot of interviews of external sources, and it was just so refreshing. Because I mean, I hand it to people like Kyle Jepson and Jory Monroe and Justin Champion for just getting on there like day in and day out. But it's helpful to have these other takes, right? And when you get into these like you know organizational wide topics like sales enablement, things that affect the whole journey, right? It's super helpful to hear it from others that aren't just HubSpot, and they kind of had to do that because at that point, they're it's known to be a marketing software, right? So as you introduce these other topics, because that's where you want to grow, it's important. So this was the first time that I experienced, you know, having interviews throughout, like external HubSpot, people inside the ecosystem, but not working for HubSpot, participating in the content. I'm really excited that they're expanding that program. And a lot of this nuance I'm talking about is only going to come from, the nuance of people that are working in all these spaces, right? For us, it's industrial manufacturing, or maybe focused on the quote to cash piece, right? Revenue operations is another awesome one. How to map a sales process. So many people need stuff like that. And again, we can share lesson, we can add to playlists. I'm just scratching the surface here. But if you had to pick a couple and you had some time, or if you had to pick one, right, the sales enablement course, and these are longer courses, so this is something you'd finish throughout the week. They're both about 5 to 6 hours, but they cover like so much of the process and the change and the things that get impacted when you're focused on customer experience, like from start to finish, right? It's basically revenue operations is your digital foundation, like where the data is going. It supports a specific customer experience that you've highlighted, right? And then sales enablement is all about how to use the things that we've created so that you can serve that customer experience, but also how to understand the customer behavior so that you're putting all the right data in and the whole system is working together, right? So I love those three things. And it's kind of how I approach, this topic overall. But there's a couple, there's one hidden one that really surprised me when I first took it. And this inbound marketing optimization, I did not really know what I was going to get. And this was a couple years ago. But when you look at this first section, becoming an effective inbound marketer, interpersonal communication for marketers, how to be an effective collaborator, managing marketing projects, like these three by themselves was what I was experiencing internally. Like there's all these great ideas. Like this is how we do content marketing, guys. This is what inbound is, right? Well, that rah attitude, when we think about interpersonal communication and being an effective collaborator or team player, that's not how people don't always respond to that. right? So this was specifically speaking to the challenges that I was having. And this is one of those moments where it was less than a couple months old when I found it. And it's just like, okay, HubSpot is listening to their customers and they create content to help their customers get their job done. Because while this is titled inbound marketing optimization, like it's optimization in a different way. Like first, if we can't get content out the door, if we can't get a website page up, if we can't get the form right, right? Why not? It's because a bunch of people are involved and they all have their different opinions and you need to manage that, right? And if you're new to this space, it's challenging, right? Even especially if you've been in SaaS and all this stuff has been going great and then you move over to industrial manufacturing, it's a different world, right? And none of the same tactics are going to work as far as how you get things done, right? So this course is one of my favorites. And don't think that you have to have done the inbound marketing, uh, certification first, because this is more about like some underlying concepts, right? It helps to understand that first, but you don't necessarily need it first. The other one I want to highlight, and this is not actually a cert, and let me see if I can find it easily and then we'll wrap up. Um, let's see, it is, I think, critical thinking. Yeah. Yeah, so it is a course. All right, and let's click enroll. All right, and this one, I think it was end of 21 or 22. Actually, 22 is when I first saw it, 2022. And so why? So this is one of those topics where I think for many of us, it's like we're trying to introduce new topics. And first of all, people don't have time or they're not creating time in their day to just think about stuff, right? Whether they can, uh, whether they have a lot of critical thinking muscles or not is not where you should approach this from, right? It's, do they have time? Have they learned how to do it? Like if they've come in and it's just process every day, it's following the same process. Nobody's asked them to think critically to get their job done. They haven't had to. So it's very easy to point at the person and say, oh, why aren't they thinking about this stuff? I would catch this immediately, right? I used to be there. That was me, like back in 2017. But just understanding, like, if there's no requirement of you to do that, to do your job, you don't, it's an extra thing that you don't need to do. And if you're just focused on customers and the process is, let's say, quote unquote, working, as in there's nobody like yelling at you, right? There's no reason to try and add this. Um, but as change happens, as growth happens, whether you want it to or not, you have to start thinking about things a little differently. And that's where taking that person that is used to the same thing day in, day out, and they don't understand why this new tool is coming in. They might be concerned that it's going to replace them. Another nuance that I haven't mentioned yet, but it's very easy for somebody to look at this and think that they're going to be replaced by this thing you're showing them. And if you don't address that up front, it's an important piece of communication. So this is, I think, a hidden gem. And obviously, like this title, this is where, when it comes to training, it's a challenge if this is always on the head of the marketing person only, or the RevOps person, or the person in charge of HubSpot, because this is traditionally an HR function, right? And without leadership agreement and without a training program in place, throwing a course like this at somebody could have major consequences, right? Um, it doesn't change the fact that they probably will get value out of going through the course. But this is the kind of course where if you can get it done in like a team environment and team understanding of how this will help everybody and nobody's getting called out and all this stuff, right? It's can be hugely valuable. Got learning styles and multiple intelligences here, right? So it's concepts that we need to know in a growing organization, and the more people that know it, the easier change becomes, the easier growth gets, right? The easier success gets on both sides for our customers, internally and externally. So this was another one where I was like, joining a new company, and I found this, and it's like, wow, um, it gets to the heart of the matter, right? This is what we need, especially as so many things change in the world outside, right? Uh, but this is the kind of value. It's not just the HubSpot tools, right? It's and when I approach academies, like for any business, if you can take this approach, I mean, this is what it takes to be the number one resource, to be the number one partner with the person that you're doing business with, because you're so ingrained in what they have to accomplish. You can find all of the challenges that they have. And in this case, it is bring HubSpot into an organization, and people are not open to solving the problems that they know they have. They're open to talking about them, but we cannot solve them to save our lives. How do we help people using HubSpot, people implementing HubSpot, move through that challenge so that we can get to everybody using HubSpot, right? That's why this course has value, and that's why HubSpot would take the time to do it, right? So if you can find these challenges as a business for your customers and then start to address them through an academy, you will get value in return. So definitely over time here. I hope this was valuable. I'm excited for next week. And if you need any recommendations related to your role or your market that you're in, please don't hesitate to reach out, and I'd love to have a chat with you. So again, here we are in HubSpot Academy. Find the opportunity for you and your organization, and let's grow. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll see you next week.